Hello, everybody, and welcome to this session of Guildmaster Gaming. Today, I'm talking with director Luca Pizzoleo and his film O.C.D., which we had the opportunity of seeing at FilmQuest this year. So, Luca, please introduce yourself and tell us about your film.
Sure. My name is Luca Pizzoleo. I'm an indie filmmaker based in Los Angeles, California, and my film is OCD, which follows a neurotic delivery driver named Owen who's resisting his OCD compulsions in a convenience store while his TikToker girlfriend is preparing an exposure therapy dinner date. And when he resists his compulsions, it subsequently triggers the apocalypse.
It's a very interesting twist there with that. Now, there is one thing
It's
that's
crazy.
interesting about the title of your movie. You have a subtitle to it when I saw it up on IMDb,
Hmm.
and it is not obsession compulsive disorder.
Uh-huh.
Do you want
It's
to?
obsessor. Yeah, it's Obsessor Caserio Deus. And so our writer Connor Patrick Walsh actually came up with the idea of adding the subtitle, and it sort of kind of goes back to the Latin roots of OCD, of obsession and compulsion. And we just thought it was a cool kind of like horror twist adding to it.
Because it does give it with the wording, it kind of gives it a different feel instead of just a
Hmm.
compulsion. It's a little bit more
Right.
forceful there. So,
Yes.
I had the opportunity to see the film, and it's a fun little film that takes place pretty much in one setting, in one
Mhm.
location with cutaways to the girlfriend. But now the disorder itself is very clearly a good starting point for this
Mhm.
film. But what was the inspiration of how, because I saw that you're not the writer, but what was your inspiration of taking that screenplay and how you wanted to present it?
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, Connor, who our writer is, Connor Patrick Walsh, him and I met about a year ago, and it was kind of one of those LA things where every time I go into a meeting with a writer or someone else, I'm like, yeah, I'm probably never going to talk to him again. And Connor ended up hitting me up right after and was like, let's go grab a beer next week. And I was like, okay, amazing. And so we sat down and he's a great guy. We immediately connected. And one of the things that we shared something on is the fact that we both have OCD. And Connor mentioned to me, he said, I always had this idea about what if all your intrusive thoughts became a reality. And that sort of little uh, idea stuck with me. And I went home and I sort of came up with the bones of the idea of the film with Owen in the convenience store and the girlfriend. And then I presented it to Connor, and then Connor kind of took it from there and was like, okay, she's this TikToker and she's doing an exposure therapy dinner date. And there's this agent who sort of embodies OCD. And yeah, pretty much from there. That's where the initial inspiration came from was our shared I don't know what you'd call it, but dealings with OCD. And our goal really has been to not only have fun with it, because I think for us it was sort of healing, to do something where we can take something that's somewhat traumatic, but make it funny, or at least funny to us. And that's kind of been our goal is to showcase what OCD is really like, while also doing it in a comedic lens, which we think is a great way to communicate with the audience, like important topics.
Yeah, I noticed what it to me was is kind of using that satirical approach of overplaying it. And I just
Mm.
got to notice that my connection is kind of weak here, so some of this might be a little bit spotty on the
Cool.
communication back and forth. I have noticed when that happens, though, it usually comes out okay on the recording. So
Uh-huh.
it should be good there.
Cool.
But
Yeah,
just if
all good.
anybody, if it does, just that's what's going on there. So it overplays it quite a bit, which I think, like you said, adds to the fun of it all.
Mhm.
And so this is a shorter film, and we saw it at festival. But I guess you've had it out on festival for a while now.
Yeah, we've sort of done I think about a little over 10 festivals so far. We're about halfway through our run. And so we've gotten a really incredible opportunity to kind of screen all over the country. We've been to Newport Beach, LA Shorts, South by Southwest Sydney, and obviously Film Quest. So it's had a really great run, and I think it's been the best run of any film that I've had so far, and it's been just such a joy meeting and connecting with everybody in all these different wonderful parts of the world.
So that's really good. Since the run's been going, um, have you had any nibbles yet on somebody picking it up for distribution or for one of the streaming channels?
Honestly, there's some things that we've met some great people and we've had some incredible connections come from the festivals, but right now, not yet. What Connor and I have done is our sort of end goal with the film is we've written a feature version of OCD, and we're sort of using this short as our proof of concept, and then obviously all the festivals and attention that we get not only on the festival side but also on social media with TikTok and Instagram. We're hoping to use that as like a good kind of pitch package that we can put together. So I think right now we're just focusing on the festivals, networking, and then we're eventually going to send out all the materials out together.
So more in the lines of the future of going for the feature film instead of
Yes.
concerned about what's happening with the short. Um,
Yes.
so I understand how that works. So that's yeah, good luck with that. It's
Thank
I
you.
we actually I don't know if you know this, but this year at FilmQuest there was two features that were
Mhm.
shorts originally.
Oh, wow. That's
So
amazing.
that were made into full-length features and shot this year. So it was kind of fun to see, if you
Mhm.
saw the earlier ones and seen the evolution of them was
Right.
it's really quite amazing to see. So for yours, would it be, is this just like one aspect of the feature, the whole
Mhm.
thing taking place, or is it kind of taking that whole event and expanding it within that one setting?
It's definitely more on the first where it's what we're trying to create is we're trying to create a world. And so it's sort of like OCD is this, in a way, superpower. And I don't want to speak too much, but the agent obviously is a part of some agency of OCD. And it definitely still plays into those crazy kind of horror thriller elements. It gets way crazier than the short. But it isn't set in one location. We kind of use our one location as an idea to show, what could happen in a specific point in the movie. And obviously, the way that I am as a filmmaker, or for me, is that I like to make sure that all my films are self-contained. So watching OCD, obviously, it finishes and it's its own
Mhm.
thing, but I think it gives someone enough of a taste of what the world would be like going into the feature.
Okay. So we've talked about kind of your film here, where it started and where it's probably going. But
Mhm.
let's kind of talk about Luca for a moment. What was your
Sure.
inspiration to become a filmmaker?
Mhm. Well, I kind of always bring it back to myself as a child. I have always wanted to be a filmmaker ever since I was a kid. It was something that I just gravitated to, and I give that a lot to my dad and my grandpa, because my dad, he's from Italy, he's Italian, and my mom is from America. And my dad is very much lenient, so he's like, I don't care what you watch, blah blah blah. My mom is like, you can't show him that, you can't, blah blah blah. And so when I was a kid, I was watching, great, like I was watching 310 to Yuma and Birds and a bunch of Hitchcock movies and The Matrix. And my grandpa, on the other hand, would show me a bunch of the old Westerns that he used to watch on TCM. And so when I was a kid, I was really addicted and just glued to like TCM and all those old classic channels. And there was a magazine called, I think it was Movie Magic in the early 2000s. And when I saw the behind the scenes, I just really became enamored with how everything worked. And really from there, to make a long story short, I just started making Lego stop motion movies as a kid. Those elevated into shorts with my friends, and then I had eventually met Roz, who's the lead actor in OCD. And I met him about 15 years ago. We actually met on Xbox, which is pretty funny. And we have just been making shorts really ever since. And so I that's pretty much where I've started.
So you mentioned a few movies that you kind of watch with your, but which ones
Uh-huh.
of those movies or others were the ones that you said were really impactful to the way you see movies and wanted to be involved?
Well, I the thing with me is I feel like I've watched really a lot of movies. I mean, not as many as like some people, but some movies that really stuck out to me as a kid were um, Singing in the Rain was one of them. That is like one of my all-time classics where it really, I'm not even really a big musical guy, but the sort of magic of a Technicolor musical is something that is so amazing to me. Paper Moon, Peter Bogdanovich is another one. I love Kubrick. Kubrick was one of my favorites, especially as a teenager, where I got really into, Full Metal Jacket and Barry Lyndon. Um, Passive Glory. But th those were kind of those main key movies that stuck out to me. And I mean, as a kid, obviously, I loved all the kid movies and Marvel movies and X-Men and Matrix, and I always thought those were super fun. So I think my sort of style has kind of I've sort of meshed this fun craziness with trying to do it at like a higher or mix it with like high concept ideas.
Okay. I can see that in this one, how some of those that you mentioned have that influence of
Mhm.
the angles and how it's portrayed. So um, it's a lot of fun to watch. I'll tell you that because it's like, okay,
Thank
what's
you.
going to happen next?
Thank
So,
you.
so kind of along those lines, it's like, okay, we've talked about there's your past. Now you're looking at putting OCD into a feature, but do you have any other projects that people can kind of keep an eye out for?
Right now, my main focus is really working on features. So OCD is one. There is also another feature that we have in the works that we Connor and I are actually working on. There's another project I'm working on with a writer who also he makes an appearance in OCD, Ryan Emilio Molina. And so I'm sort of dipping my toes into trying to write as many features as possible. I'm kind of at that point now where I feel like that I've done a lot of shorts and I'm kind of ready to take that leap into the, bigger feature film side. So in terms of shorts, there's really nothing on the horizon outside of the OCD public release, which hopefully will be I'd probably say sometime early next year. And other than that, it's really just going to be me in the background, kind of grinding and figuring out this feature film thing, which I know is a whole lot of fun.
Okay. You're saying a public release for OCD. Where you plan on putting that out for people to see if it gets to that point?
I'm probably going to put it on YouTube. I think with all my films, I've been approached before by some streaming services for shorts, but I think I really like to make my films as accessible as possible. And that's really not only to the people who follow me on like TikTok and social media for them to check out, but it's also for, just anybody. If there is a producer watching, they can easily find my work if you Google me rather than having to have it behind a paywall. And so, that's just kind of how I've been with my shorts, and I'll most likely release it publicly on YouTube for everyone to check out.
Okay, just if you do that, I mean, I'll tell people always try to check it out like at a theater, if you get a
Yeah,
chance
of
at a
course.
festival, because it's the big screen, just that's what they're designed for. But at the same point,
Yeah.
if they want to find you on YouTube or you mentioned TikTok, what are some of your
Mhm.
handles out there that they can find you?
Sure. My handle is Luca Pizzoleo on everything. That's LucaPizzoleo. It's a little tricky, but I'm sure you could find me if you try.
All you have to do is watch this video and look for your name next down in the bottom of your corner.
There you go. That's perfect.
It's a great way to make it going, yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
So we got that's where your film will probably come out and everything. Now you've mentioned some of these other things, but I'm going to kind of jump a little bit bigger. If you had the advantage of doing a dream project, what would your dream project be?
Oh, that's a good one. I have a couple. One is honestly OCD. The feature that Connor and I have worked on is really wild, and it's a whole lot of fun, and it kind of encapsulates everything that I love and the type of movies I love creating. Um, I'd also like to take a crack at an old film I did called In the Valley of the Moon, which I did a few films ago, which is a 70s crime drama, and it basically follows this hitman who's hunting down this real estate agent who used to be in the mob. And so it's kind of this it's similar where it's a little wacky, but I think when I tackled it as a short, I didn't fully find my voice as a filmmaker yet. And so I'd love to tackle something like that. I love the 70s, anything period, really. Like I just love diving into that world and jumping in there.
What would you say is the draw for doing that period for you?
I well, one, I think it's just really a lot of the stuff that I grew up on. A lot of 70s movies I used to watch when I was a kid, and 70s music. My mom was, really into like 70s music and even 80s like hair rock. So I think like the 70s or the 80s hold a special place in my heart. And it's just always been a sort of style and music and vibe that I've been drawn to. Um, I really don't think I can sum it up any further than I love it. Really, I think that's really all.
No, I just kind of asked because I've come across a number of people that they talk
Hmm.
about positioning their movies or their screenplays in the 70s and 80s.
Hmm.
And there's something about that time frame that people really like to kind of like write their stories into. And so
I
I'm
think
kind of been
like
interested of finding out different people's reasons
sure.
why.
I
Yeah.
I think yeah, there's a lot of reasons. I also think too, the 70s in film was really a sort of revolutionary time in cinema, and so I think, you have such iconic characters and such iconic films that were not the norm prior. And so I do really love that aspect of the 70s. Stylistically, it's beautiful. I love it, the colors, everything, but that's pretty much why I really enjoy that time period.
Okay. So it sounds like you're pretty involved in film. Just from the way you're talking, I get the feeling that it's probably part of the day job that's paying for the making of the movies you do.
Yeah.
Uh, so when you're trying to get away from that whole aspect of filmmaking or in that,
Mhm.
what do you like to do to relax and have fun?
I like to watch movies. I mean, that's really like that's that's I remember during the pandemic, my friends were making fun of me because I used to do I try to watch like 2 to 3 movies a day, and so I'd wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and instead of going to the gym, I'd turn on a movie, and then I would start my day, and then I'd end the movie or end the day with a movie, and kind of similarly, whenever I get free time or I don't really have anything to do, I try to jump in and watch something that I haven't seen, and I think that's something I've been really good about. Like last month, I did all of Sergio Leone, where I was like, I really need to hammer down and get it all done, even all the way up to like Once Upon a Time in America, and it really I hold some of my best memories even just watching movies or watching movies with the people I love or even in the theater. So whenever I get the chance, I watch movies or play with my dogs.
Okay. I'm going to ask a little bit of a personal question based on something you said
Sure.
earlier, and I've been trying to make sure I get this framed correctly. So if if you want, you can just say decline on the answer to
Sure.
this and we'll move on. But you said that you came across the idea for this because of your own OCD issues. Uh,
Hmm.
Now, I know a lot of people, I work with a lot of authors and artists, and we're all across the spectrum of all sorts of different things.
Hmm.
What would you say is for yourself an advantage of being neurodivergent or having OCD and how that has helped you in your career?
It's a really good question. I think trying to think about how it does benefit me. I mean, I think there's a lot of ways. Like one, I don't want to play into the notion that being or having OCD means you're just a neat freak because it's really just not the case. And I think that stigma of just keeping clean, people don't understand that there's compulsions and intentions behind the compulsion. So maybe a person with OCD keeps their things very tidy, but there is also a reason why, okay, my shoes need to be like this because, X, Y, and Z, which I am kind of one of those people. So my room is very clean. I feel like I'm very tidy and also I'm very organized because I think for me, especially before we even filmed OCD, I do this with every film. I constantly think it's not going to work out, and if I don't do this, then this isn't going to work, and it's just going to be a complete failure. So I really kind of do an insane amount of work, and even on set, I remember Steven, one of the actors in OCD, was telling me this is really a lot of prep work where I had, just pages and pages to make sure I'm as efficient as possible. So I do notice that I am a little more organized. I don't know if that fully goes into OCD. I know there's some times where I do have a compulsion where I'm like, if I don't do this, then this movie is going to fail or I'm going to embarrass myself and whatnot. So I think there's some benefit there. But other than that, yeah, I think OCD isn't like fun, but I think there are like I think everyone kind of deals in some way with it. And so I think if there's some, for me that's I guess I'm trying to figure out how to finish this up, but
No,
yeah.
that's I think you did a good because the one thing I deal with, like I said, I work with a writing organization, and
Hmm.
it's amazing how many creative people are along the spectrum of neurodivergency. And
Hmm.
it's one of the things I kind of talk to people, and this is the reason why I was thinking of it, is trying to get people to understand it doesn't matter. If you
Hmm.
want to be creative and you've got autism or your ADD, it use it as create a strength out of it. And that's the reason why I was
Definitely.
asking, because that way if someone's going, but I have these compulsions, it's like, okay, how did you see it as a strength? And then I can use that to helping other people. And maybe somebody
It's
watching this can do that too, going, oh,
yeah.
yeah, I
No,
can do that.
exactly. It's so funny. Also, when I was in, we were at the Nashville Film Festival a few months ago, and a filmmaker approached me and said that I saw your film on the program, and I had to see it because it was a film about OCD. And the filmmaker told me that they had really, really bad OCD, where they had to go to intensive therapy and kind of go to a sort of in-stay, institution to help, um, or therapy center. And basically, they told me, it was really difficult, but I found a way to kind of use my OCD in a creative way. And they're directing music videos for some of like the biggest artists, out there. And so it is true. I think if you have any obstacle, and as a artist or anything, you can definitely find ways to use that to your advantage and not let those things stop you. I think that's kind of how I've always been, even if I've had things that I felt like were uh, obstacles that put me behind other people. I think a lot of it I owe to my dad, especially him being an immigrant, having that like immigrant mentality instilled in me as a kid, of just like working as hard as you can, and if it doesn't work, just trying a different way. And so I think that's kind of how my mindset has always been.
Okay. And I think you might have already answered this, but it might just be restating. But if someone came to you and said, I want to be a filmmaker,
Uh-huh.
what piece of advice would you give them?
I one piece of advice that I got when I was a kid, and it was a really impactful piece of advice for me. Um, because I constantly, when I first started making movies when I was like 13 or 14, I'm 26 now. I was making a film, and I was always constantly worried about what other people were thinking, or, are people going to be disappointed in the final product? And one of my friends, who's also an artist, told me, uh, you don't have a boss, so why not take the risk? You can't get fired, so you might as well just make whatever you want. And if it fails, it fails. But I think that's really the beauty of filmmaking. And I think a lot of people don't really understand that a failure isn't just, cut and dry as, oh, that's it. You learn a lot from your failures. And I think I can go back and look at all the films that I've made, and even my earlier works aren't the best, but because of those films, I was able to do a better film the next time. And, some people ask you, well, how do you make a good movie? Well, I think you have to make a bad movie to be able to make a good movie. You have to be able to really learn from what doesn't work and why. And even with OCD, there's things that I took away that I would do differently on a second go around. And I've learned from every film ever since, and I feel like I've only improved from there. So just don't be afraid to take risks, and embrace failure. It's not the end, really.
It's that whole concept, keep failing forward. So, as a
Yeah,
final thing,
exactly.
uh,
Exactly.
we're going to give you a one last chance here to do any type of call out or anything you'd like to say uh, to the people that you worked with about your
Sure.
film, to others. What would you like to tell us?
Well, one, I had an incredible, incredible team. They always say it takes a village, and I feel like I had a pretty damn good one. Connor Patrick Walsh, incredible writer, incredible creative. Really, this film wouldn't even be here without Connor. Um, Bridget Sonabay, our co-producer, Roz Fritz, our lead actor, Stephen Ogg, Angie Shell, our makeup artist, Jeremy Bassett, our cinematographer. I mean, you can find these people obviously on our Instagram. I tag everyone almost in every post on the OCD movie page, which is ocd.movie. And they're all just incredible creatives. And I think I've been very, very fortunate to meet some incredible people around me who are not only very talented, but just very sweet human beings. And I think that's the first thing I look forward to when I want to work with someone is are you a nice and kind person? And if you are, then great,
All right. Well, hey, thank you, Luca, for joining me here, talking about your
Thank you.
movie, OCD. And like we've been telling, it's on the film festival circuit, everybody. So you can go out and find it hopefully at your local festival, it will get picked up. And if it can, check it out on the big screen. If not, it's looking like probably the first to second quarter of next year, it will be made available on YouTube. And you can follow more about Luca's work just by social media accounts using his name or O.C.D, the movie. It sounds like either one of those will work to kind of follow everything along. So uh, I think that pretty much covers everything. Thank you for joining us. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Dan. I appreciate it. Thank you for the time.
Okay, and everybody, until we will, if you like this, please put a like on it, share it out to let other people know about this. And, if you subscribe, that just kind of helps so we can keep doing more of this. So thank you again for joining me and joining Luca, and we'll talk to you all soon.